By the time sesifika khona, safika masimjonga khona, setshonile umntana, seyiswelekile.
But we only got her already have passed away.
Survivor Mike Ngulube was shocked by electricity and had to climb down a tree to escape, only to later learn that he lost his entire family.
Then they told us that there is no dead body of your child. So they gave the dead body of my child to another family. What surprises me is that they refused to give us the body of my child. And then, but when another family came, immediately they gave them the body of my child. Okay, so they said that they accepted that, yes, they admitted that they made a mistake. And then what they promised is that maybe they will wait for about 3 months. They are going to go and exhume the body, bring back the body. Okay, so because of my condition, because I was still in the hospital, so they were not telling me a lot of things. So they said, okay, let's just carry the body, go bury, and then after that we will see how we can sort out. Now they took the body of my wife to Deep Sloot, and I was still in the hospital.
Right, let's talk a little bit more on the lasting effects of, psychological effects of this kind of disaster. We're joined by Pan-African Psychology Union President, Prof. Saths Cooper. Prof, thank you very much for coming on this evening and helping us in this conversation. What is the experience that these witnesses now at this inquiry are going through as they are reliving what could have been a rather traumatic event that could have potentially would have seen them nearly dying? Some of them lost their children, some of them lost their wives or girlfriends or very close members of their family.
Well, very clearly from the harrowing testimony, they are deeply impacted by this. They would show a variety of post-traumatic stress symptoms, and I don't think that they will get closure in any way if we proceed at the snail's pace we tend to do in this country when disasters like this happen. We seem to have lost the duty of care that we owe to people who are in our charge at all levels. This speaks to another tragedy that could have been avoided, and at various levels of authority and government, there were serious lapses. Now, if this kind of thing had happened, like Isidimeni, if it had happened anywhere else, there would be a hue and cry. We had that attention at the time that this building was on fire, a very historic building, by the way, because I think it was the headquarters of the past officers during the apartheid era, that we have lost a sense of our humanity when we just look at the processes that could have been engaged and we dropped the ball on it, and now we have this inquiry. We're notorious for inquiries, commissions and inquiries. And that comes from the colonial era, actually, into the apartheid era. And we seem to glorify these inquiries, but we forget that what we're spending on the inquiry, we could have spent alleviating some of the extreme distress that some of the unfortunate victims, the survivors, these persons have survived a horrific incident. So, Thabo, you and I can think about, if we were to undergo this, how would we manage? And yet, this group of people do survive with whatever little resources may be at their disposal. I think we should hang our heads in shame because of this kind of occurrence.
Let's talk about, I mean, except for the speedy resolution of this investigative or fact-finding mission that we are currently on, what happens to someone when they lose anything? The pain of losing, be it a home, be it possessions, be it memories, be it loved ones. What is the effect of that loss?
Immense and profound loss, especially when you lose loved ones. I mean, we got the story of this person who spoke to his girlfriend and said, get the children and we'll do X. And he survived. So there's guilt as well, because I've survived, yet those that I owed a responsibility to and I was caring for are no more with me. So he'll live with that forever. And very little can really be done except through a very concerted therapeutic exercise that can make that memory diminish in gravity, because it impacts all of his life.
Yeah.
Then when you lose other possessions, there's a set of losses, but you can replace the possessions, but you can't replace the life, you see. So how do you deal with that? There's grief and there's not knowing, because the one person said that they haven't found the body.
Sure.
You see, so this is another kind of episode where just yesterday was, I think, 10 years of the mine disaster in Mpumalanga, and that conveyor lost its holding and disappeared, and the loved ones have not been found. So we tend to think that because some of us are okay, we shouldn't bother with somebody else. And yet, in this country in particular, the loss of people and lack of closure is one that brings horror and is an echo of our historic past. We don't have closure for all those we've lost through one action or the other, direct omission or commission by authorities, previously apartheid and now, shamefully, under democracy. And, you know, in a few months' time, we'll be looking at the 30th anniversary of our democracy. So we need to come to terms with our culpability. And I'm afraid that some of us in positions of authority, and we've heard the testimonies of people in charge in some of these disasters, and they all deny responsibility. So who do you hold responsible, in these kinds of cases? You can't hold the victims responsible. We tend to offload on the victims. We tend to blame them for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, merely eking out an existence. So something is wrong with our humanity now.
What I hear you say, Prof, is that as long as these victims are continuing to be living in distress or in distressed circumstances, be it loss of possession, be it loss of accommodation, or even living in substandard accommodation, continuing to see the suffering, it's going to be very difficult for them to erase even the memory of the kind of loss and tragic event that they would have gone through, because they are living it over and over again.
Absolutely. There's what we call secondary traumatization. When they come and they relive these incidents in a very vivid fashion, they may express it in words, and they're testifying. Some of them are testifying in English. It can mask the pain, the profound sense of loss, helplessness, and guilt that you feel, and knowing that forever you will not be able to erase at all. And why should they erase memories of their loved ones? Perhaps dim the horror but they should cherish the memory of those they've lost through no fault of their own. They were in a situation that ought not to have happened in the first place. So if we were to, accuse, we should be accusing the people in positions of authority who allowed this set of circumstances to transpire, not the victims, because in this country, we are fond of blaming victims. Blame, in particular, black people in this country because of the past, and some of them can't forget the horrors of the past. Then those who are guests in our country and experience this kind of event, we tend to offload on them. There's almost an Afrophobia. We tend to visit the most horrendous distaste and denial when it comes to somebody who looks like us but doesn't, and we think does not belong here. So all our pent-up fury about the other issues that are going wrong in our lives will be visited on persons. They deserve it. It's that kind of mentality we've come to adopt. And it's almost akin, I cannot help but draw the parallel with the previous oppression. When oppressive conditions happened, and we in positions of power, and we commit those atrocities, or we allow them to happen, we tend to deny our culpability in it. There's something in our psyches where, and the research is replete with, if you abused early on in life, the likelihood of you repeating abuse on others is very high. Now that's through childhood. When you get socialized in an unremitting reinforcement of an inferiorization of yourself and others who look like you, then it's a recipe for ongoing discordance and a fractured psyche, individually, group, and country level. We have a wounded psyche. Our neighboring countries actually don't have the degree of woundedness we have as a country. And we should be learning that some of our neighboring countries went through war. They actually fought in the trenches, held off the colonizers or the settlers. You can look at Mozambique, you can look at Zimbabwe, you can look at Namibia. But the level of safety, security, and wholeness in those countries is greater than it is in ours. And we suffer the worst abject poverty and self and other negation of any nation on earth outside of Palestine.
Prof, let's leave it there. Much appreciated. Thanks for coming on. The Pan-African Psychology Union President, Prof. Saths Cooper.